Welcome to the Sip and Feast podcast episode. We are not telling you the episode because we don't know if this one is going to be before or after the one that we film later today. Needless to say, this is probably going to be episode 5 or 6 for you guys. And what are we talking about today, Tara?
We're talking about pizza, and specifically your quest for the ultimate New York pizza recipe. And I feel like we should actually be eating pizza while we're recording this.
I think we need a bigger table so we can get some pizza. Like we could have picked up a bunch of different pizza from a bunch of different pizzerias.
Yeah.
I mean, we can do so many. Just so you guys know, this is not like one and done. This isn't Jim and Tara talk about pizza and then they never talk about pizza again.
No.
If you guys like this, we will talk about pizza for dozens of episodes. And if there's a couple things that I can talk about well, knowledgeably, and definitely give you the perspective of a typical New Yorker, I think pizza is it. Do you agree with me, Tara?
Yeah, for sure. I think you could stop any New Yorker on the street, though, and they'll say the same thing for themselves. But based on everything that we're going to talk about today, I think you do have a great deal of pizza knowledge, especially when it comes to the dough.
Thank you for saying that, and we will get into the dough and stuff, but I do agree with what you're saying. This is one that is actually class is a huge part of this. I to be honest with you, I think someone of lower class or economic status would probably have a complete different top 10 list of their pizzerias and probably know just as much, especially in their mind, as someone who is considers themselves some, pizza snob or pizza expert. I really think that's why these lists, and we did a little research prior to starting this. I said to Tara, I said, let me just take a look at the best pizzerias and I just wanted to do New York City. Now, normally when you do these lists for New York City, especially now, anything post about 2015 will come up with the majority of the pizzerias being in the hipster areas of the city. So you'll have a disproportionately large amount of the pizzerias winning these awards in the Lower East Side. Brooklyn, specifically Williamsburg, Greenpoint now is becoming a hipster area. Bushwick even, which is where my father's from, is becoming a hipster area. So you're starting to see a lot of the pizzerias coming up on the list. Now, some of these have been around forever, and that's a different discussion, but a lot of them are relatively new places, which, to be honest with you, Tara, I didn't even know a bunch of these places. Like, I've never heard of them.
Same here, with the exception of a few. L&B, obviously we've heard of.
Lombardi's was on the list, and these lists are all like, the spots get moved around a little bit. Totano's was on the list. I'm trying to talk about old ones, guys. Grimaldi's, Patsy's, DeFara. Those are the old pizzerias, and all those, and I know I'm missing a few. They typically always come up on the list. But then there was a whole bunch of other ones that were on the list too, and a lot of those newer pizzerias. I'll give one example. Scars is one. 2016 they opened. And they mill their own flour in the basement. So they're really trying to turn the traditional New York pizza into something like Michelin star status. And I would assume the prices are probably high, per slice and whatnot. But it's a very popular pizzeria now that, again, we haven't lived in the city in 20 years. So these are all new for us. I was telling Tara, if I was to take the Wayback Machine you can go on and you can find the lists back then written by people in the early days of the internet of the best pizzerias in the city, it would be a completely different list. Completely different. You would have some of those few, the original ones I mentioned, but everything else, those pizzerias didn't exist yet. So pizza in New York, even though everybody thinks of it something that's been the same forever, is actually something that does continue to change. More so than Long Island. Long Island pizza, I would say, is pretty much been the same for a long time. Do you agree with that, Tara?
Yes. Long Island pizza, as we know it, has not really evolved. I would say the way that it has changed slightly is that a lot of places no longer have just, I just said, again. I'm so self-conscious about that.
Hey. Don't worry.
Yeah.
Don't worry at all.
Okay. So a lot of the New York pizzerias where they used to have the traditional toppings of pepperoni, mushrooms, sausage, meatballs, olives, peppers, now they have a lot of different toppings. Like the pizza we had the other night, for example, they had chipotle chicken, bacon chicken ranch pizza, a lot of different options, which are all really good. But I would say that for Long Island pizza in particular, that's really the height of its evolution, is going to those heartier, more fancy toppings.
Yeah, I mean, so Long Island is divided, and you know we're jumping around here, but the Long Island pizza scene, you have the ones that have been around a long time. Probably the person who owns it now started working in the pizzeria probably with his father, and his father, no doubt, was someone who moved from the city, came out to Long Island, the suburbs. Long Island is the original suburb, so it's, you know, it has it's the first suburb, they call it. The pizza here is prolific. It's crazy the amount of pizza in Long Island. It's so, you just take for granted how much good pizza you have everywhere. But a lot of those people who came out here, they opened up that typical pizzeria. So like Tara was saying, those kind of toppings. And there wasn't much, I guess, ingenuity involved. Like they kind of like rested on their laurels for a long time. And,
well, they perfected their pizza and it was working. And in my opinion, it still works. I would still opt for a plain slice of pizza over anything with toppings any day.
I actually was surprised to read this, that pepperoni is the most consumed pizza in the United States, more so than a regular slice, which to me does not make sense. But I guess they're grouping Domino's, Pizza Hut, and all that in there, and that's probably the predominant order.
Probably.
So very surprising to me, and I read that in multiple articles. So I know we're jumping around here, but Tara, point me back to True North. What are we going to talk about right now? What's this next part about?
So Jim, I would really like to hear more about the quest you went on for the ultimate New York pizza dough. And the reason I say it was a quest...
New York pizza, you mean, not
New
pizza
York
dough.
pizza, but... okay, yes.
We need to define what New York pizza is.
Yeah.
You want to take a stab at it?
So for me, New York pizza is a round pizza pie that's cut into 8 triangular slices. Isosceles triangle. Well, I don't know if that's even correct. It's cut into 8 slices. When you pick it up, the tip of the slice, the pointy part, you would fold it in half. The point kind of flops a little bit, and there's usually a decent amount of oil on it. And it's just tomato sauce, mozzarella cheese, maybe a little bit of oregano. Right?
Tara did a great job, and I'll further flesh it out right now very quickly for you. Most New York pizza, and we're talking about slice shops, the exact pizza that Tara is describing, this is basically an evolution of Neapolitan pizza. The people who came here brought their pizza with them. They basically stopped with those coal ovens, the wood-fired ovens, and they created this uniquely New York thing, which is the New York round slice that Tara's talking about. It will almost always use a couple ingredients. It all trumps flour. I know there's pizzerias that don't use it, but that is by far the most used flour in New York pizza. They also use grande mozzarella. They also use Stanislaus tomatoes. I know there's other brands, guys, but if you really just take those and then you have a standard dough that they make, and each place does their dough a little differently, you'll come out with that oily slice that Tara's talking about that will flop when you hold it. It will not hold straight.
Yeah, it's not like a cracker or anything like that.
And it takes about 6 to 8 minutes to do in a standard deck oven. Deck ovens in these pizzerias are all made by a few brands. So it's basically, it creates a lot of consistency from pizza place to pizza place. Like a pizza worker, somebody who saved his money for a long time, he can go buy a pizzeria from someone who wants to exit the business, and he can jump right in. He's going to probably be using the same oven again. He's probably going to have all the same parts of that business that he's used to, the same mixer, everything jumps right in. So that's how we're going to define a New York slice. We don't want to confuse it with a lot of these very, very expensive, the pizzerias I talked about in the beginning, in the more trendy kind of hipster areas. That pizza is great. I'm not not trying to take anything away from it, but I wouldn't call that New York pizza. Would you, or do you think I'm wrong here?
No, I agree 100%.
Because those type of pizzerias you can find in other cities in the United States.
Yep.
But what you don't find in other cities in the United States is the standard slice shop New York pizza that are a dime a dozen in 5 boroughs and Long Island. That's what you don't find in other parts of the United States. So that was the pizza that I was trying to create.
Your quest for creating the perfect New York pizza recipe was kind of a twofold quest, right? There were 2 reasons. One of them, I would say, is more business related, and I'll have you explain that in a second. The other one was more personal, and also, I think, something that you wanted to do for others, like maybe even altruistic. So maybe just touch a little bit on the business related aspect of wanting to create the perfect pizza recipe, and then we'll go into the other reason.
Yeah. So pizza in New York is a religion. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody thinks that they have the best place. They're really dedicated to it. Most New Yorkers can talk pizza very well. It's not relegated to Italian Americans. It's not relegated to definitely not Italian people. An Italian person comes here, this is all foreign to them, like the pizza situation here. It's something that is just really, really ingrained in New Yorkers' blood. I'm not trying to say that people in other parts of the country don't love their pizza too. They adore their pizza. But for here, I wanted to satisfy, and again, from the business angle, our website has a ton of recipes. And in order to not have a content gap, because we just do Italian and Italian American food guides for 90% of recipes. I know I got a chicken fricassee on the website. We have a chili, we have stuff like that. And that's a whole nother discussion, how people went nuts when I put beans in my chili. But, I guess I like to stay, quote unquote, stay in my lane, because it's hard for somebody, I can't get a criticism of what New York pizza is from someone who's living in another state.
Right.
They right away, because they don't know what I'm trying to make. So that was the whole thing. I wanted to get that topic gap filled. And there was a very tough thing, because it was a lot of learning involved to do that. What was the 2-part about it that you were saying too?
So the second part of the question was we know that you were trying to fill the content gap. That's the business reason. The other reason, I think, is kind of a more personal and even altruistic reason. And I think we kind of realized that when we were living somewhere else outside of New York, we lived in Minnesota for 3 years, we weren't really able to find a pizzeria close by that would give us that same taste of home, that New York taste. And we get comments from people all the time saying that they are New Yorkers. They were born and raised in New York. They've left. They live in the South, or they live in Texas, or they're in other parts of the country, and they just can't find a pizza that tastes like home. So in my mind, I think a very big part of your quest for the perfect New York pizza recipe was trying to help those folks who we can easily sympathize with, because we did experience that and we did live out in New York. And you wanted to be able to give them a recipe that they could take and make in their home oven that would taste just like home to them, New York.
100% right. So content gap was one thing. You can't be an Italian American site without having a lot of pizza. You can't be a YouTuber doing the food I do and not have 20 pizza recipes. That doesn't make sense. It's
Right.
where's the pizza?
Right.
Where's the pizza, bro?
Yeah.
So that was it. But as far as getting for those other people, that's really what I was trying to satisfy. And in order to satisfy them, I had to satisfy myself. And to satisfy myself, let's be honest here, it took a hell of a lot of time to get where I did with pizza. There was a lot of trial and errors. There's a lot of wrong information online too. That's part of it. So I spent a lot of time on pizzamakingforum.com, and it's an excellent resource. But now there's good information on there and there's bad information. The worst type of bad information is from people that sound like they know what they're talking about, but they don't know what they're talking about. This kind of infects the internet in general now. Right now, you might be saying, Jim, that's what you sound like right now, but if you come out, and this is typically done by males more than women, I just, I don't want to go down that road, but it's the truth. You keep your head up, you're assertive, you talk well, you say this, and this, and people go, oh, this guy must be right. And honestly, a lot of sites that people consider like good information steered me the wrong way in the beginning. Obviously not going to go into any of them. But ultimately, the reason that they steered me the wrong way is the test. It didn't taste how we needed to taste. So that was the ultimate thing. And it was so easy to test this because I could test it against not just Tara and my kids and our family. I could test it against my parents. My parents have rarely stepped out of New York for their almost 77 years of existence. So, they know pizza well. They've eaten at hundreds of these places. And if they tell you, and when they take a bite and they're like, you're not there yet. You're just not there yet.
Yep.
And again, I'm not trying to imitate the more fancy places. Those are amazing places. But like when people want a slice, that's not what they're looking for.
Right.
They're looking for the regular pizzeria that you walk into. You grab a few slices, you take maybe a couple napkins, you blot the top, you walk out, start grabbing it to eat it. Some oil runs down your hands maybe. Maybe it gets on your shirt if you're a little messy eater.
Oh my God, you're making me hungry.
That's what it is. Those places will have a few things to put on your slice. They'll have like a little hot red pepper in one of those old school shakers. They'll have a little bit of Parmesan cheese or pecorino, a little bit of oregano.
Garlic powder.
Yeah. That's it. That's the place.
Yeah.
That is the place that I was trying to duplicate.
Yeah.
And this took a long time.
So it took a lot of time and it took a lot of flour, specifically.
How much flour did it take?
A couple 100 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, I think
you were getting deliveries.
I think I did
nonstop.
5 50-pound bread flour purchases from the place I got it from, guys, was Webster Store. So that's like a restaurant supply store that's really awesome online that you can get anything you need, not just the flour, anything for pizza making. So you can buy all the Stanislaus tomatoes, which, as we mentioned in the beginning, is used by a lot of New York pizzerias. You can buy all the proofing boxes, proofing tins, whatever you want to use to store your dough balls. You can buy all your peels. So in the videos, I've used a metal peel. That makes it a lot easier to remove your pizza, and you use a wooden peel to launch it. Most pizzerias are just going to use a wooden peel the whole time. But it's more difficult actually making a New York pizza in your home oven. And we'll get into it in a little bit after. It's more difficult because you don't have the advantage of a deck oven that's high. And if you actually, when you go to a New York place and you sit there and watch the guy, you should just do that. Walk in there and watch him for 30 minutes or so. You'll see like how they're like using that peel and they're skilled. They walk it right into the oven and they're actually launching a pie.
Yeah, it's impressive.
And we went into that in a few other videos too about how New York pizzerias pretty much are the only ones that do launch the pies. They got a lot of pushback. People saying, Jim, you're wrong. That's not the case. I'm telling you guys, I know you think I'm wrong. I'm not. The pizza screens are one of the most sold items for pizzerias, probably in the other 49 states.
Yeah, and you're not saying that there's not, one or two pizzerias that do launch.
I think people confused it.
But you're saying the majority.
People confused it. All wood fire places, coal fire, they all have to launch.
Yes.
You can't use a screen for those pizzerias. That's not what I was referring to.
Right.
I was referring to a place that's doing regular, trying to do like a New York pizza, or say like Domino's, Papa John's, whatever. So just like that, those pizzas are not, the coal and wood fire take 2 minutes to make. You have to launch that and you need to be turning immediately or your dough, you're going to incinerate.
Yeah,
you're going to be completely black on one side. That's different. Those places can't use screens. And those places are good and they're available in all 50 states now.
Yes.
But again, I was talking about the New York pizza. The New York pizza, it's an 18-inch or 20-inch pie that's hard to shape and to put on your wooden peel. I mean, this is a massive pizza. And then you're launching that without a screen. It's very difficult to do. So that was a big part of that. That was the hardest thing to do. Launching a 12-inch pie, guys, like if you watch YouTube videos, If you watch people who do it, it's so, and I'm sure they probably tell you, if you do that with a 12-inch, and that's what I recommend you start with, or even smaller, it's so easy. Once you start shaping a 16-inch pie, which a 16-inch is kind of a little small. You know, I always talk about that. I hate that some of these pizzerias now around us locally are doing 16-inch pies and calling them their largest pie. I think that's a little, it's not how it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be 18-inch pie. You know, and you say, Jim, what's the difference between those 2 inches? It's a lot. It's a big difference because you're talking the circumference of the whole entire pie.
That's right. Can you talk a little bit about the water? Because I think one of the common misconceptions people have is that it's all about the water. You can't create a good New York pie without New York water.
I made pizza with tap water, New York tap water, and I made it also with bottled water. I could not detect a difference. I haven't seen anything prove, like make a good case for it. How are you even going to do that anyway? Now you're dealing with taste testers again, and we all know the
How
folly.
scientific that is.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a science, guys. The whole taste test industry, we mentioned this a few times. It's a sham. People are selling. It's like you're selling the look.
Yeah.
Are you into it?
Yeah. So if it's not the water, then what is it? What gives the New York pizza its distinct taste? I
think it's simply you got to have the good dough. Everything starts with the dough and basically ends with the dough. Once you know the other ingredients, so here's the deal. You can buy grande mozzarella. You can buy Stanislaus tomatoes. You can buy Sicilian oregano. You can buy the standard ingredients that are the tomatoes I already mentioned that are going to go on a pie, but it's the dough. So the dough itself has to be a good dough. So most pizzerias in New York, now again, I'm referring to the standard slice shop. I'm not talking about those other places, which I really think I have to keep reiterating here, because a lot of those other places they're not using a deck oven. They are using they're using a wood fire, coal fire. So the standard places are typically going with a 62 to 64, maybe 65. We do a 65. Actually, I do a 64% hydration dough. So it's it's a pretty dry dough. It's not a wet dough.
And what are you doing with the dough to give it its flavor? Are you just making the dough and sticking it in on the peel? No.
So what I'm doing with the dough is I cold ferment it. Now, a lot of places don't do this. They have tried and true techniques that they do it. And I experimented with other ways too to try to I wanted to make dough that tastes like New York dough, but also was easy for people to make. And it's simple with the cold ferment, because cold fermenting essentially means you're making your dough, you're mixing your dough together, you're kneading it, you're balling it, and then you're putting it in the fridge to cold ferment. So slows down the fermentation process. Because if you were just to mix your dough and then just to leave it out for 24 hours, it would just go too high, it would collapse, you couldn't do it. So you do this, and the flavor profile changes. So I don't know really the science behind it. Serious Eats has some good articles about it, about what, and this doesn't just work for pizza. This works for bread making in general a lot. It's just a great technique. But the thing that's really good about it is it's easy, and then you're left with a result that tastes just like your favorite slice shop. So a lot of these other places, they might be using pre-ferments. So they might be using a starter. They might be doing a poolish. They might be using a Biga, B-I-G-A, which is kind of like a thicker dough, like sponge almost, but it's not a sponge. So there's a few things you can do. This is all you can educate yourself on this from French bread baking books and everything. But there's a lot of ways to turn out a result, but you're not trying to turn out the best dough here or best bread. You're trying to turn out something that tastes like the New York pizza. So it's not as technically, you don't have to do your stretch and folds. You don't need the sourdough starter. You can do it all without it. I use SAF instant yeast, which is pretty much the yeast of choice for these pizzerias too. Some pizzerias use, they use active, and they'll use different types. But SAF is very popular in the commercial space, bread baking. So I kept educating myself. And we didn't even get into the actual brand of flour. So I'm not using all Trumps, which I made a decision not to use all Trumps because again, our audience who we're serving are people that want to do this, but don't want to go through the hassle of necessarily having to buy 50 pounds of flour. And you can't buy like 5 pounds of all Trumps in a store.
Right.
I'm sure somebody's going to say, Jim, they have it where I am, but I couldn't find it. So what you could find was 5-pound bags of King Arthur bread flour. Now, King Arthur bread flour, the protein content is not as high as all Trumps. So you're missing a tiny bit there. Mm-hmm. I guess if you wanted to like one up my recipe, go buy the 50-pound bag of all Trumps from an online restaurant store. And then the final thing was diastatic malt powder. Now, I didn't do it in the original videos, in the original recipe, but that's like the icing on the cake. So
what is a diastatic malt
So it's
powder?
like a malt barley powder. So what it does is it's really used in bagel shops. All use it. So it makes that really golden color. But bread bakers use it. All different types of bakers use it. Pizzerias religiously use it. It basically turns your dough from a very blonde state to almost like an orangey state.
And you used that most recently in one of our recipes for the broccoli rolls.
Yeah, those rolls, guys, are amazing. Let me just stop it here. Guys, when we do these podcasts, I always, because we're filming with 3 cameras here, and sometimes these are Canon cameras, sometimes like you'll just lose the footage. So what I do to make things simpler is I do like 10 or 12-minute clips, and then I stop it. So my feeling is if I lose one clip, say I lose like the main camera for Tara and I that I'm pointing at right now, I'll still have the one with me. So that's the thinking behind it.
Or you could just film my face reacting to whatever it is that you're saying.
Yeah, and just like
the eye rolling.
Yeah, the eye rolling.
Sighing.
I do feed off of Tara, and this is what I'm getting at here, because as I stop this, we're probably, 28 minutes into this. I said, do I sound like a know-it-all? Do I sound like a know-it-all, Tara?
No, this is a topic that you have a ton of knowledge on. So you don't, to me, sound like a know-it-all. And I think you seem really excited and passionate about this topic. Like you kind of almost have that look in your eyes, like a kid in a candy shop.
All right,
that's how I feel. That's how I feel.
I hope to you guys that don't sound that way.
And I to the point about you feeling passionately about this topic, I think I would like to say to folks listening, because obviously not everybody listening is from New York, and they might be wondering, well, what's the deal with New York pizza? Why are Tara and Jim so passionate about New York pizza? Why do people care? The way I would describe it is pizza is something that's embedded in our culture as New Yorkers, we're Long Islanders. So it's a very important part of our culture. It's something that we grew up with. We all had our favorite pizzerias. And in fact, it's so much a part of our culture that when we were living in Minnesota, if I met or ran into another New Yorker, the first thing that they would say to me when they knew that I was from New York was they would recommend a pizzeria in Minnesota that had New York pizza. That was Joey Nova's Pizza. And I'll give you an example. I was standing in line at Chipotle one day in Minnesota, and the gentleman in front of me, he was wearing a Yankees hat. And I said to him, are you from New York? And he said, yeah, why? And I said, well, I'm from New York too. And right away his like demeanor changed, because I guess he was probably on the defensive, right?
He was probably annoyed about being asked that.
Yeah. So right away he warmed up and he was like, you have to go to Joey Nova's. It's the only pizza. It's the only pizza I'll eat here. So something similar happened when we were in an Indian restaurant where we heard somebody from like 3 tables away talking with a loud, abrasive accent, and we knew right away they were from New York. And we struck up a conversation with him, and right away he talked about Joey Nova's. So I say all this to say that pizza is something that I think is a commonality amongst people from New York, and it's something that we are passionate about. And when we find a pizzeria that can kind of emulate the pizza that tastes like home, it's something that we find a connection.
Yeah, I think that's well said. I really wanted. I joke. There's nothing more narcissistic than starting a podcast where you don't have guests on.
We would like to have guests,
Because essentially you're telling the audience you need to listen to me for an hour, whatever, however long it is every time.
We're not telling anybody they have to listen to us.
You don't. And of course, guys, we're trying to make this entertaining for you. But I do joke, like, I guess a natural evolution of a YouTuber is you make 10 or 12-minute videos, maybe 15, and then you say, oh, you know what? I'm just going to do an hour now of me on a podcast so people can have more of me.
No, you know what it is? We get a lot of questions about things like this. And pizza is certainly one of the things we get questions on all the time, whether it be on YouTube, on the website. So having a podcast episode where we are fleshing out the pizza topic, I think is beneficial. And for people who enjoy listening, hopefully they're enjoying this particular episode. But if not, I mean, everybody has they have free will. They can turn their button off.
It's a bit of a tangent. We were talking about the rolls.
Yeah. So on that topic, your New York pizza dough recipe that we have on the website, you can do so many other things with that recipe beyond just pizza. So what are some of those things? What are some of your favorite things to make besides pizza with the pizza dough?
Yeah, so one of the best things to make with it is a roll. So in other parts of the country, they might be called stromboli, but most places here in New York are calling them rolls. So you can do anything you can imagine. Like the other night, we just got one broccoli and cheddar roll from a place, and it was delicious. I have broccoli and mozzarella rolls on the website. We have a recipe for that. I also have a broccoli rabe and sausage one. Delicious. But
it's kind of like a Hot Pocket.
It's like a Hot Pocket. You could do meatballs. If you slice your meatballs, you can do chicken parm. You can do anything to your heart's content. It's easy to do because if you have your standard dough ball, so like have a dough ball that can accommodate basically your standard like 16, 18-inch New York pizza. You divide it not into 8 slices, you divide it into 4, though you can do 8. If you do 8, they'll be smaller. And then all you do is you put your ingredients in there, and then you fold the point of that, so like the end of the pizza, you fold it over and you wrap it underneath, and you have that beautiful looking roll. And if you guys haven't seen them and you're trying to imagine in your mind's eye what I'm talking about, you can check our site. There's 2 of them there. You could also try to find some online, but this is like an interesting topic because though they're ubiquitous and everywhere in this whole New York metro area, there's not too many people making them online. There's definitely not a lot of recipe sites doing them. And part of that is because I think, and again, tangent here, I think a lot of the makers of this stuff are kind of older. They never got the website done, or they're like old internet websites that don't work very well. But there's a lot of lost stuff, recipes, just kind of like the zucchini soup one that we did too.
Yeah,
they're like they're not too well known out there. So I think part of what we try to do is we do try to bring that stuff to the forefront so everybody can see it. So that's one thing you do with the pizza dough. You can also do pinwheels, which is another great thing. You do like a pepperoni pinwheel. So I did them a while back. We did a video for it, but you saw something that looked way better than the one I made the other night, right?
So the pepperoni pinwheels that you have are probably, 3 inches in height, right? The ones that I saw were maybe like an inch. They were almost like flat pinwheels, and I didn't know they were pinwheels. So I even asked the guy behind the counter, and I was like, what is that? And he was like, oh, they're pepperoni pinwheels, but they looked amazing. And they were covered with sesame seeds, which I love. In fact, there used to be a really good pizza place right around here.
I remember that place.
When I went to school in Stony Brook that had sesame seeds on their crust.
Yeah, that place was called New York Pizza. It was on 347, right?
That's a different place.
Oh, okay.
That's in Hauppauge.
Oh,
the place I was thinking was in Stony Brook, and I don't even remember what the name of it was. It's not here anymore. But anyway, they had sesame seeds on their crust. And again, that's also another tangent.
And I do put the sesame seeds on the rolls. They're on both rolls.
They are on the rolls.
You do an egg
That's
wash,
right.
and then you put the sesame seeds
That's
on.
right.
But sesame seeds it makes it look better. And you do eat with your eyes.
Speaking of eating with your eyes, there's another item that's found in New York pizzerias that is often an impulse buy because you get in, you're like, oh, I forgot about those. I'm going to take 6 of them.
Oh, yeah.
Garlic knots.
Garlic knots, and it's so easy. So if you're making, say, the pizza rolls, this is the best time to make your knots, because often a lot of times when you're making pizza and you start getting into the addiction of learning how to make pizza, you're not going to cold ferment 1 ball. You're going to cold ferment 4 balls, and those balls can be different sizes. If you're going to do like a Sicilian, you'll have a much larger dough ball. You could also bulk ferment everything, then ball everything the next day. And then maybe a family member says, Jim, I don't want to eat pizza for the 5th night in a row now. So then you look all dejected and upset, and you say, okay, well, I'll just make a roll for myself. And then maybe when you make that roll, you don't need 4 of them because you're taking the 4 quarters of the round pie, the round pie that you just made. Maybe you use those other pieces to do some garlic knots. And for a garlic knot, you can go super small where you're only using 25 grams of dough, or you can go all the way up to 100 grams of dough and have really big. If you do really big garlic knot like that, which a lot of pizzerias here in Long Island do, and they've been doing them more lately. They make the big, huge garlic knots, and then they cut them. It's basically they're turning it into a sandwich roll. And then they cut them open, and then you put chicken parm. I always wanted to do a video for that. So I was going to do a huge garlic knot, chicken parm in there.
Can you describe for our listeners what a garlic knot is for those who are not familiar with it?
Yeah, so it's just a knot of dough. I didn't discuss opening your dough balls so you don't degas it or anything. And again, we have recipes for all this. You're not learning to make pizza from this podcast. We're trying to just communicate, I guess, the obsession of it, the journey. But yeah, you would take some strips of dough, roll it out, and then knot it. And you can knot it any way you want. You can do a long knot. You can do a couple different ones. You can make a whole wreath. Remember, sometimes you'll see wreaths of garlic knots.
That's
done.
right.
Yeah.
And then what do you do with it?
Oh, well, then after you bake them, and you could bake them on your steel like I've done. If you do that, you'll get charring. You'll essentially get leoparding. If you don't want that much, you can just turn your oven down to 450. And I know we didn't even discuss using the steel.
I do want to talk about
we'll talk about that.
But just can you describe after you bake the garlic knot? What do you do with it to turn it into a garlic knot?
So you can do garlic butter. Yes. I make a garlic butter. I put a little bit of olive oil in there too. Lots of parsley, hot red pepper, and then pecorino. The pecorino and the salt is best put on after you toss them, and you put your garlic butter in a big bowl. Do a really big bowl, bigger than you need, because you're going to be tossing and you don't want all the garlic butter going all over your face and everything. Then when you put them in the plate, that's when you put your salt and your pecorino on there. Pecorino is kind of salty. I still say put a little salt on there, add a little bit more parsley, then just boom, you're set. I'm just thinking about it right now. I'm and it's been so long since I've made pizza for us, Tara.
I know. You should really do it again.
I made so much for such a long period of time.
You spoiled us.
And the videos never took off on YouTube. The New York pizza I did has 700,000 views. There's videos from other creators that have 10 million views.
Yeah.
And it hurts me because a lot of these are done by people who aren't even from New York. It's you don't even know, if you can't even 100% take their word for it that they're actually doing it.
Yeah.
But that all being said, the pizza videos I did, they weren't the best quality. I didn't really know what I was doing yet at that time. So my audio wasn't perfect.
You can always remake them.
I did all the good recipes when I started the channel, and it's because I wanted to show my knowledge of certain things.
Yeah.
And I'm going to just put it out here. I didn't have a lot of knowledge about pizza making before I went on that quest.
Well, that's the thing. You went on the quest, and it was a journey, and you learned a ton. And now I would consider you an expert. No?
Definitely not. And guys, a great creator who has amazing bread making videos too is Brian Lagerstrom. So he's not from New York, but I would consider his pizza making, and I don't know if he did specifically a New York pizza. I would consider his videos excellent. So we actually might have him on the podcast. So we're not sure when that would be, but I think he's going to be he's probably making his own videos for like New Haven pizza and stuff. So he's going to travel here at some point. So if we can get him on, we will, and we want to have other people on, other creators too, guys. So as I said before, even though I'm an ultra narcissist, I'm gonna bring people on the show and let them talk.
So Jim,
it's a joke, guys. We're just starting the podcast here. It's not like we have like a whole bunch of people lined up.
One of the key components to creating a New York style pizza at home in a home oven, not a special pizza oven, is the surface on which you cook it. And you did briefly touch on it, but in all the research you did, what is the optimal surface for a home oven?
Yeah, so that was part of the original New York pizza video that I did. I also showed how to prep a steel. So when you make pizza and you go on your journey, if you're trying to do like a New York pizza, like a standard round, you have to cook it on a stone. But it's been proven now for a long time, and I didn't create the steel technique. What you're trying to do is simulate a deck oven. So like if you go, we spoke about it before, if you go into these standard regular New York slice shops, they'll have a deck oven, and they're all made by like 3 companies. I think it's like Blodgett, and I can't remember the names offhand, but if you go to these pizzerias and look, you'll see them. But they're like these long rectangular ovens, and pizzeria maker opens it up, or pizzaiola. He opens it up, and then he takes his peel that has the pizza on, and he launches it into the oven, and he closes the oven. So in order to simulate that at home, you need to use a steel or a stone. If you just try to do this in a pan, like an aluminum pan, it's not going to work. You're not going to be able to duplicate then what a round pizza. Right. So the round pizza, what makes it nice, like a New York pizza, is it's about 6 to 8 minutes. It doesn't get overly charred on top at all. But it just gets a perfect bottom, like browned bottom, like lightly browned, orangey bottom from the malt powder. Perfect rise in the crust. Kind of like a wetness almost to it when you bite it, like the dough itself, where the sauce and cheese meet, and then the oiliness from the cheese and the actual oil that's in the dough coming up.
Why is the steel such a great and efficient tool for cooking pizza? So
the way you use it, guys, so we did a 1/4-inch piece of raw steel and we seasoned it with flax oil. We have a whole instructional tutorial on our site how to do it, and I also did it in the video. So if you're interested, there's also other people online who've done this as well. Basically, you're making it like a slick surface where nothing will stick. Put this in the oven about 4 inches, maybe 6 inches. I normally put it in the top third of the oven, put it beneath the oven, and then you heat your oven up to 550. That's typically what the highest in a regular standard home oven will go. If your oven doesn't go to 550, 525 is okay too. Then you let it go for an hour, and then you can use one of those infrared thermometers, and I did it in the video too. You check the temp, and I can get ours, and we have an old oven, like it's a GE Spectra, old electric inexpensive oven, but it will get the steel to anywhere from about 610 to 630 degrees Fahrenheit, which is the exact temperature that New York pizzerias are cooking their pizzas in. Most of those deck ovens are cooking around that 550 to like 625 area. So you're basically duplicating everything. The steel radiates the heat better from the bottom, so you really get that perfect bottom on your pizza. Really, you're duplicating a deck oven.
Yeah.
For cheap. And if you guys don't want to go through the process of buying raw steel and doing it yourself, seasoning it yourself, you can buy, there's all different makers that, like pizza making companies that sell these things pre-seasoned.
Right. You just have to pay more for it.
Yeah, but to be honest with you, and I'm like kind of like talking against our tutorial, you got to value your time. So if you're gonna do this and you're gonna buy the raw steel for $30 and you're gonna buy flax oil for $12, you're at 42. It's going to take you a lot of time because you got to descale your steel first. You do it with the vinegar. That's what you're taking off the mill scale of the steel. And then after that's done, you got to dry it quickly so it doesn't start rusting. And then you start doing your seasoning process, which you're baking it in the oven. This is a process, guys. It's like it's not a 10-minute thing.
So it's really for people, I think, who are really into DIY stuff and are willing to put in the time to do it. Because I think there are certain people who just really get immense satisfaction out of doing projects like that.
Satisfaction doesn't have a price.
But if you're not into that, buy a steel, right? Spend the extra money.
This is a fun episode. I mean, I feel like I had to we didn't do a lot of research right here, but Tara, like you can see this paper in front of her. This is bullet points so we know what to talk about. Mm-hmm. So like I don't veer too far off, which I always have a tendency to do.
No, never. So before we go into the listener questions, I think it would also be helpful if you could talk a little bit, because when we talk about New York pizza, we're talking about the New York round pizza, but there are two other types of pizza that I think dominate the Long Island or New York metro pizza scene. And what are those two other types of pizza?
So Long Island, it's more so it's the grandma pizza, though a lot of, I mean, there's places in Staten Island now making it, but the grandma pizza was created in Long Island, but in Umberto's of New Hyde Park. So it's very popular in Long Island. Like there's thousands of places that will make it. Okay. It's that ubiquitous here. It's not as much in the city, but I would still classify it as one of the three. You got obviously a New York Sicilian that is a reinterpretation. The Sicilian people that immigrated here, that's what they wanted to kind of like make something along the lines. But a traditional Sicilian pizza in Sicily will be anchovies, caciocavallo cheese.
Sfincione.
It's called sfincione, and it has breadcrumb topping.
Yep.
It's a delicious pizza. A lot of onions in it. The Sicilian that evolved here is just you kind of sauce. Oh, and that one has anchovies too. But the one here is just a thicker one, overly proofed one. Now
and
the
it's
fourth
square.
It's square. A Sicilian is square, and you can buy like pans that are made for these things because they're made so much in all these places that companies will just sell pans for it. The other pizza that I don't want to eliminate, of course, is like your standard Neapolitan pizza, which is the brick oven, the wood fire, coal fire. Again, that's kind of niche though. Even though some of those places date back to the early 1900s, late 1800s, like Lombardi's in Manhattan, Totano's, and then New Haven is all done that way.
Yeah.
So, but that is kind of very niche.
Yeah.
So what I mean by niche, it's like it makes up like an infinitesimally small amount of the pizzerias.
And those are harder to make at home too. You have to have a special oven for those.
Yeah, which you can buy now. They sell those little uni,
right?
And I forget, like they're like you hook a propane tank up to them. You got to do it outside, guys. If you buy one of those,
But can you describe the grandma pizza, because there's a lot of folks who might not be familiar with it?
Yeah, so grandma pizza is every Long Islander knows it, but there's probably people who live in the city that don't know it. Maybe, though I'm not sure about that. I mean, it is so popular, but here it's a rectangle pie that's thinner than a New York Sicilian. So it's not like it hasn't proofed as much the dough. You don't need as much dough. The major difference with the grandma is that the cheese is put down first. So you put down and you use you could go to like your deli counter and have them slice mozzarella for you.
You're not using the shredded mozzarella. You're using slice.
Most places are doing the slices. Then they put sauce, so it's drained plum tomatoes, not pureed. Hand crush them, so you have big pieces of it. You put them on top of it, so the sauce is going over the cheese, but not completely. Okay, you want to have that textural. And then you're doing your Sicilian oregano. Well, you could do that at the end. And then you're doing your garlic oil. So the whole idea, like why I wanted to do this, and everybody loves a grandma out here in Long Island. That one, some places you do a grandpa. I've seen that too. I think grandpa has breadcrumbs on it. I'm not 100% sure about that.
I don't know.
So if maybe you guys are more Long Island than I am, and you can tell me, but it's nowhere near as much to the point of like the way a grandma pizza is. And I watched a video of the owner of Umberto's in New Hyde Park. Now this video was probably filmed in the late 90s. So it was a long time ago, but I think he's doing the same way. He had like the oil can, which they use in a lot of pizzerias, but then the garlic on top of like with the oil, I was like, oh, that's such a good idea. So I do it now, and I don't just do it. I do it for a lot of different pizzas.
Yeah. You just made me think of a comment that somebody gave us the other day. You said more Long Island than you. Somebody said that they doubted whether or not you came from Long Island because you said in Long Island as opposed to on Long Island. And
Yeah.
Long Islanders typically say, oh, on Long Island.
Yeah.
And you say in all the time. So they doubted the
Yeah.
validity of your Long Islander status.
Well, if I'm not from there, where do you think I'm from? Where do you think I'm from?
A lot of people say you sound like you're from Boston.
No, Boston would be, it wouldn't be car, it would be car.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be park, it would be pack. You know, so it would be, I would say park the car. They would say pack the car. I'm exaggerating a little bit, but not so much, right?
Yeah. So, Jim, just changing subjects quickly, and then I do want to get into some of the listener questions. You had mentioned, or someone had mentioned to you that you should open up a restaurant. And there is, I know you feel strongly about not wanting to do that, but I
Yeah.
think that there is one type of restaurant you would like to have.
Okay, so I don't, and I'll just preface this by saying, like, we don't want to talk money with you guys at all. You guys don't want to hear about that. You expect us to make the videos for you, and I'm sure you probably hope we do okay financially with this, but you definitely don't need to know the exact in the weeds with it. But this gentleman emailed me, and basically, it was a really nice email, and I don't think he was trying to be condescending at all, but
No, not at all.
he was basically telling me, he's like, you got to stop doing what you're doing because it's not secure. You got to open a restaurant. And there's nothing more insecure than opening a restaurant, guys. It has the highest amount of bankruptcies and turnovers than pretty much any business. And if you don't take my word for it, just use the Google machine. You know, it will tell you whatever we all know. And we all know this because think about your favorite restaurants in the past. Just think about even where you were going to eat in the early 2000s. Are any of those places around right now?
Yeah.
And those aren't success stories a lot of times, guys. Those are heartbreak when those places close.
Yeah. And I think it became even more evident how difficult a profession it is to run a restaurant during the pandemic.
That was the icing on the cake. And we have a friend who owns a restaurant who's owned it for probably over 10 years now. So he's actually what you would call a statistical survivor. It's not that common for people to own it that long. And especially like he's like an individual. So it's not a lot of these other like famous celebrities you see like Michael Simon, Bobby Flay, they have like huge backers behind them. So they close restaurants like you take a sip of water. There's no skin on their back. It doesn't matter. Move on to the next idea. I mean, Bobby Flay's opening an Italian restaurant now in
I think I
Borgata,
saw
right?
that. Yeah.
And, you know, if it does well, that's great. If it doesn't, it's not going to be any skin on Bobby Flay's back. He's still going to be worth $200 million. But that's the restaurant group scene. But the individual restaurant owners, it's filled with heartbreak and everything. So, Jim, where are you going with this? What I'm saying is I would do it when Tara and I have enough security. So that means that maybe our site, who knows, in the future, maybe that's sold to a company. Though we would love to keep it forever, guys, because we love all of you. You know, we love the audience we have. Maybe we just hold on to the videos and we earn from there. But we'd be in a situation where the restaurant, and I would love to do this, but I do not want to be in a situation where I need a substantial profit from my restaurant. I would love to be able to take care of my employees really well and to do what I want to do in the restaurant, not what has to be done to pay the bills. So I would want to have a pizzeria / little, almost like trattoria, like very small, where I have like maybe 5 or 6 tables. So maybe the place holds like 20 people, 30 people, 30 customers max. And I'm doing a few different pies. I'm not one of these regular pizza shops that's like, oh, I'll do anything for you. No, that's not how it is. Like, I'm going to do my best, try to make the best stuff, but it'll only be a few pizzas. And then I will do a limited menu, but that menu will change all the time. And I'll be able to do all this because I won't have to worry about having to make this big profit. That would be my dream. Wouldn't that be your dream too, Tara?
Yeah, that would be great.
And I think the best place for this, guys, would be out east in Long Island. It would be on the North Shore. It would be that Mattatuck, Southold, Greenport area, which is severely lacking in those type of establishments. Do you agree that it's lacking in those type of establishments?
Yeah. definitely. I mean, I don't spend a whole lot of time out there, but I would think that the pizzerias are kind of few and far between.
They are.
It's mostly farms.
Yes.
That are out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we were in Greenport recently. I didn't see a pizzeria.
There were more coffee shops than pizzerias out there in Greenport.
Well, there's the best coffee shop.
I know you love that.
Aldo.
Her favorite place is Aldo.
Aldo is up there with the best coffee here, closely followed by our friends at Druthers Coffee in Stony Brook.
She likes Druthers, which we live in the Stony Brook area. And basically, good pizzerias, in my opinion, get a lot fewer once you kind of pass kind of where we are. Not even. Honestly, you kind of probably the Comac Hopog area, and then that's where they kind of start to slow down a lot.
Yeah, it does. Although I can probably think of 4 pizzerias that are good, that are right in our immediate area.
Yeah, we have a lot of good ones that are right here, and sometimes they're hit or miss. They'll be better than others. We don't want to hurt any business, or really, we don't really have an incentive either to like prop up one place. Not that you guys are going to flock there anyway. We're a ferry ride away from New Haven, so we bought New Haven Pizza recently, right? From a famous place there.
Yeah.
And, that's an experience because we were remarking, not to get into like which is better, though, I have my opinion. Tara has hers. The difference, though, you can get an amazing pizza here like at dozens of places in a matter of 15 minutes.
Yeah, easily.
There, I had to I had to order it online. I had to put all my information in, and then we had to wait over an hour for the pizza, and we had to get in line in a turnstile thing. It was almost like,
well, you were only
absurd.
allowed into the pizzeria when your pizza was ready, and you went in, picked it up, and you had to immediately turn around and leave. There was no hanging out in the pizzeria waiting for your pizza to cook. It was not a good user experience by any means compared to what I'm used to. If I need to pick up a pizza here, that's because of what happened the last couple of years, right? That's why. I don't know.
I would think
never
that's
been
why.
to New Haven prior.
Yeah, there's not a lot of pizzerias there, guys. It's like, it was basically called like they won a lot of awards, I think, over the last 20 years, but there's not a lot of pizzas there. I mean, we drove the whole area. It was like a few blocks, right?
Yeah.
Again, like, not an expert here, guys, but it was not. I mean, there's more pizzerias in a couple towns here than there is in all of New Haven.
It was just, for me, it was a little too difficult to obtain a pizza. Pizza should be easy.
And we remarked the other day, because Tara got me 3 slices from a place that we go here fairly often. She got me pesto with fresh mozzarella and plum tomatoes, slices of plum tomatoes.
Fresh plum tomatoes.
Plum tomatoes, yeah. It was delicious sliced. And she also got me crumbled sausage and broccoli rabe slice. And then she also got me a chipotle chicken slice, which was like in a grandma style. So like, square cut. I remarked as I was eating the pizza, enjoying it immensely, that this was so easy to get those 3 slices. If we went across on the ferry, it would have been 2 hours.
Time is precious to me. So for me, having to spend a lot of time and put a lot of effort into getting a pizza, it's not worth it. So
it might be different now. Pizza was good at the place we went to in New Haven. Different. It was coal fired, so it was very charred, and I think that's how all the pizza's done in New Haven. So this is a very old pizza place. So Italian immigrants came there late. Some of these places date back to the late 1800s, and they have like the same oven, the same buildings. So they're making it that old Neapolitan way. You need a lot more skill to make these pizzas, which could hurt if you don't have a good person. You run out of a good worker. The pizza can incinerate quickly.
Yeah,
but I thought it was good.
My only critique is that it was a little too much effort.
Yeah.
So Jim, let's get into the listener questions now. One of the questions I think fits in nicely with the theme of this episode because it's somewhat related to dough. The question was, at what stage of focaccia making does one poke holes into the dough? Is it after you've shaped it and put it in the pan, or after the second rise before going into the oven. They can't seem to get a clear indication of when this happens.
Probably the reason you can't get a clear indication is that all recipes are different. And I would say if you ever like want to do an authentic Italian recipe, don't go to YouTube, don't go anywhere but Google. And when you search, only go to Italian websites. So you have to use Google Translate.
.it, right? That's what
that'll give you a better chance of getting if you want like that. Now, focaccia is very unique in Italy. It's all different. There's, Calabrian style. Like some are thin, some are very thick. There's a million ways to make it. Your specific question, you can poke holes initially, but if you let it do another 2-hour rise, it's just those holes are just all going to fill up again. It's the dough itself is lifting. It's all rising. Poking the holes doesn't stop that process from continuing again. So you can initially, or you can just, after your 2-hour rise, make your holes, and you can use like your pinky finger. So you're getting like, from the way the question is worded, I think she wants that really extreme holes. So, if you want those extreme holes and everything and like that awesome texture, probably your dough too, you're going to want to have like a really high hydration dough, like 80%, maybe a stretch and fold. To basically any technique you can do that's going to add more of that like, air in there. So increase the crumb of it. And then you would poke your holes and then you'd get it in the oven.
Jim, what's your favorite outrageous pizza topping? And I will just, before you answer that, I think we could have an entire episode on pizza toppings, especially those that infuriate people.
Oh, yeah.
We know, like the pineapple.
I don't get infuriated
The pineapple
by
thing
that.
makes people so angry. But what is your quote unquote outrageous pizza topping that you like?
I don't think I've ever ordered a pineapple pizza in my life, but I don't get offended either. I'm doing my best to never get offended in general because so many people get offended with the food that I make.
Right.
It makes me want to go the other way. So we deal with 20 to 30 negative comments a day. So people will be like, from kill yourself to, you didn't do it exactly the way my Nona did it. It makes me want to go the other way. So if you want your pineapple and ham, go for it. I'm not too big of a fan. What I would say, like a unique slice, I mean, this is funny, but we're going old school here. We're going to actually sfincione, like the real deal.
So you want like lots of anchovy?
You don't find too much in any pizzeria, guys. If you ask pizzeria to do anchovies, they'll put anchovies on it. But if you find a pizzeria that will do that real Sicilian sfincione, that is a delicious pie. And we've had those pictures for over a year, and we haven't put it out on the website yet.
We got to do that. Doesn't your dad put like anchovy fillets on his pizza?
Yeah, he
loves
whole
fillets.
And I love them too.
Yeah.
I can open. People always go, well, I don't want to open up a tin of anchovies. What am I going to do with them? You know what you do with them? You eat them. They're delicious. Like,
you love them.
You make a good Caesar salad.
Yeah.
You don't want to just blend 2 anchovies into your dressing. Do that, or 3 or 4, but then take some whole anchovies, maybe just chop them into like thirds and then put them in there. So good. It's such a nice salty deliciousness to it. And I don't buy the anchovies anymore by the cans, guys. I buy them by the jar. So you get a big jar of them, and then you can just keep them in your fridge. Yeah. And then, the oil will congeal, but then you just run it under hot water and open up.
Okay, so one final question, which we get asked a lot. What's the deal with the sip part of Sip and Feast? Will you ever do episodes on the sip part?
It was a different time when we started the site. That was 6 years ago, and it was myself really, because Tara was full-fledged into her career, and this was kind of like we were we spoke about this in episode 1 about everything, how everything came to be, but it was not. We weren't anywhere near where we are now. It was really, I started this to do something a little bit on the side, and now it's, Tara's here. So in the beginning, Sip and Feast was, I said, it'll be nice to put drinks on the site too. And Sip and Feast originally wasn't even an Italian food site yet. I was just going to make all food. I went into the Italian niche just because it's what I grew up with. So it was like easy for me to kind of share with you guys the stuff that I know the best. But drinks were an easy way to build content quick because they say when you start, you got to have at least like 100 recipes before anybody will at all start to care about you. So I was like, okay, if I do 50 drinks and 50 food, to this day, there's not even, I don't even think there's 50 drinks on there. Because also, I stopped drinking so much. So I haven't drank too much alcohol in the last 2 years. Essentially, I think it was over 2 years ago. It was. I just stopped drinking completely. So, and then I probably went like 6 months, I think, without having anything to drink. And that was instigated by Tara, who stopped drinking probably 2 years prior to that, right?
So yeah, in 2020, I just decided I didn't want to drink alcohol anymore. So really for health reasons. And I stopped, and I'll have one maybe on a quarterly basis, like 4 times a year I'll have one. But I found a lot of ways to enjoy other types of drinks when I'm kind of craving an alcoholic beverage, like whether it be seltzer or non-alcoholic beer or whatever.
Oh, our seltzer situation has...
Yeah, I love seltzer. But...
That has risen. Tara's got like every flavor imaginable in the garage.
Yeah, coconut's my favorite. But when we do create recipes or photograph recipes and put them up on the website for drinks, I do take a sip.
Oh, I do.
Because
I do too.
We need to make sure that what we're making tastes.
Yeah, we just shot
good.
We just shot 4 drinks recently. Like, whenever you hear this, doesn't matter. But 2 days prior to filming this, we shot photos for Americano cocktail, which is a great cocktail, guys.
It is.
All right, it's simple. It's Campari and sweet vermouth.
Yeah, and that's
soda.
actually like slightly lower on the alcohol scale.
It's slightly lower on the alcohol. It actually was created by the creator of Campari.
Yeah.
So like this drink dates back to like 1860, and it was probably more popular in Italy. Though a lot of these things that were in Italy that were there forever are only brought here at some point, and a lot of them are brought by Brooklyn hipsters, believe it or not. Because the other drink we made was with an Amaro. What was the drink that we did there?
A paper plane.
Yeah, it's called a paper plane. That was, I believe it was created in probably in Williamsburg. I might be wrong, but I actually am wrong, guys. It was created by Sam Ross. He's a New York City bartender. I'm just reading from Wikipedia right now. He's a New York City bartender and modern cocktail extraordinaire. He developed the paper plane cocktail in 2008 for the opening of the Violet Hour, which is a bar in Chicago. Amaro. Excuse me, guys, for pronunciation. Amaro became very popular in that area probably about 10 years ago. You'll see a rise in all these cocktails right around that time. They don't exist on the internet, then boom, they're everywhere. So we did that one. That was a strong drink.
That was strong. Well, that was all alcohol, right? So that's something you serve in a coupe glass, whereas the Americano had a decent amount of club soda in it. And then the other one we did was the Lillet Spritz. Which is Lillet Blanc, Prosecco, and club soda. And we also reshot the photos for the classic Negroni.
Yes, we reshot the Negroni because and that's what we do. I'm always trying to reshoot my photos, make the site better. Who knows what's going to happen with ChatGPT and Midjourney. Now I could probably just hit a button and have everything redone for me immediately. But for now, everything is created by us, just the two of us, and that's how we do things.
Yeah.
But yeah, as far as drinks go with the sip, that's the issue there. I still do have a drink every once in a while. When we go to sushi, I'll have sake. I'm a sucker for warm sake, even though warm sake is supposedly like low end, right? Like you're supposed to drink the expensive cold brewed sake.
You get a bottle of it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do that though. I like the warm. It's something about the play with the cold sushi and then the warm sake.
Yeah.
You could also get that play with green tea, warm green tea.
That's what I drink.
Yeah.
When we go to the sushi place.
But I'll have like a glass of wine if we go to a steakhouse. Like if we go to like one of the nice steakhouse, you just have to have a glass. I feel like I have to have a glass of red wine.
You're just not like you're not drinking like every weekend or so out of habit.
No.
It's really kind of a few and far between based on whatever experience you're having.
And we are going to do a video for those spritzes. And that's like in a long ways about answering why it's become more feast. That being said, I'm not rebranding. We're actually having our website completely redone from the ground up, which maybe by the time you're even listening to this, it'll probably be done. And it's going to be new. And we have the trademark for Sip and Feast, where I'm just not going into the rebranding, not even thinking about it, because I actually love the sound of it.
Well, and Sip
we're gonna have LED logo right on the wall in back of us.
And Sip doesn't have to be alcohol. There's plenty of non-alcoholic beverages, and there's also, what is my favorite non-alcoholic beverage? It's coffee. I mean, we can definitely talk about that too. So Sip to me doesn't have to just mean an alcoholic drink.
I agree. And speaking of sipping, I hope you are sipping something good during this episode. Send us your questions, your comments, anything you like to podcast@sipandfeast.com. I said it in the past, I'll say it again. If you want to send us a video question, feel free to do that too. Mm-hmm. You can send it to me, send it to that email. We'll add it in. But again, you're not getting anything different by watching this versus listening to it. We're trying to satisfy all of you guys, and we appreciate every single one of you showing up and giving us your time.
Definitely.
See ya.
Thank you.